want to talk about the first step of change, the first step of getting on the healing journey. And it's about making a decision to change. Now, I know that can sound overly simple, and you might be saying to yourself, well, I've made decisions over and over to change, but nothing has changed, nothing has stuck. Well, that's one of the biggest challenges in change, is what I call the backwards inertia, that feeling that something is pulling you backwards, and actually something is pulling you backwards, and it's your core beliefs about yourself. And so it's not just enough to decide that we're going to change. We have to believe that change is possible. Then we have to believe that change is possible for us. And then we have to believe the most important thing, which is that we are worthy of change, that we deserve to change. You see, one of the things that trauma does to us is it sends us the message that there's something wrong with us, that we're uniquely broken, that we'll never be able to change, that everybody else can change, but we don't believe that we can actually change. We have all kinds of stories in our head as to why they were able to change, and we have all kinds of stories in our head as to why we're not able to change. So all of those stories and that backwards inertia is coming from our core belief about ourselves that we are not worthy of love and that we are not worthy of change and healing. So anytime you do try to change, you actually feel that backwards inertia. It almost feels like you have bungee cords that are on you, that you're trying to make this forward advancement, and you just have all of this energy that's pulling you back and sitting you back down into what you believe you're worthy of, or where you believe home is for you, which is in pain and suffering and in the feeling that you're unworthy of love. So if you're confused about why every time you try to change, you fall back into those old behaviors and those old patterns, or you feel hopeless because you've tried changing over and over and over, but nothing seems to work, well, one of the challenges is that you're not getting to the core belief that you have about yourself. You want to change, but you don't believe that you actually can change. And the reason you don't believe that you can change is you have a fundamental belief about yourself that you're unworthy of change, that you're unworthy of good things. And that belief system came from the trauma that you experienced, because here's what happens when we experience trauma. Trauma is not what happens to us, it's what happens in us. And as a result of what happens in us, we make decisions. We make decisions about life, we make decisions about people, and most importantly, we make a decision about ourselves. And that decision that we make about ourselves often is one that there's something wrong with us, that there's something bad about us. Because we had that experience, our brain interprets that because that happened to us, there must be something wrong with us. And if there's something wrong with me, then how do I deserve good and better things? I actually deserve the bad things that are happening. And so in healing, in making a decision to change, we have to start addressing that core belief, because we can put our foot on the healing path, but that core belief is always going to pull us off of it. So how do we do that? How do we begin to rewire those core beliefs? Well, we have to realize that core beliefs come from experiences. We had an experience, we made some decisions, those decisions became thinking patterns, and those thinking patterns now are our core beliefs about ourselves and what we're worthy of. So the first place that we want to start is in giving ourselves new experiences. And one of those new experiences for you as a trauma survivor, it's going to be learning to love the parts of yourself that you're rejecting about yourself. All of the things that you're judging yourself for are there because you developed them as survival mechanisms. And so we've got to learn how to love those parts of ourselves. And in loving yourself and in practicing self-love, you see, this is why it's so important to practice self-love as a trauma survivor, is because you're sending the message to yourself that you're worthy of love. You're allowing your brain to see that you believe you're worthy of love, and that's giving you a new experience with yourself. Instead of shaming yourself, instead of beating yourself up, you're now giving yourself the experience of love. You're directing love towards yourself, which is a new experience, which then can begin to retrain you and then can begin to put you in a position where you believe that you're actually worthy of change, and then you're able to see yourself changing, and then you're able to walk into the reality of your life changing. Now, there's obviously a lot more to it, and I'm just covering this in a very short first video about this subject, but we have to start with rewiring that core belief, because that core belief, as I said, is always going to take you back to what you believe that you're worthy of. So here's a quick exercise that you can do in helping rewire that core belief that you're unworthy of love and unworthy of good things. And it's what I call the FAST method. It's something that I've developed and I do in working with my clients in coaching. And it's around understanding that our feelings, our actions, our speech, and our thoughts are what we can use to rewire our core beliefs about ourselves. And this is where a lot of people fall down in rewiring their core beliefs. They just try one of those things. They decide that they want to think differently about themselves, so they start to think new thoughts. The challenge is we just get into kind of these repetitive thoughts that we're doing in our mind, and we're doing them almost mindlessly, and we're not attaching emotion to it. You see, if you take a thought and you attach an emotion to it, and you really begin to see yourself and feel yourself experiencing love, experiencing change, then that starts to embed it in your system. The other thing that people do is they start doing positive affirmations. And so they say things like, well, I love myself and I'm worthy of love. And they say it with that type of energy. And their system knows they don't believe it. And so your system is rejecting it. And you actually feel your system rejecting it. And here's a really important thing to remember. Your system is going to reject this in the beginning because it's foreign to it. It's not used to you saying those things, feeling those things, and believing those things about you. And so your core beliefs are going to try to push that away from you. But the important thing to remember is it took you years to develop a negative core belief, and it's going to take you some time to develop a positive core belief. But I want you to be encouraged that a positive core belief can be developed much faster than that negative core belief, because a positive core belief is actually aligned with who you are, and your system is going to start absorbing that faster. So don't give up, stay with it. So what you want to do is to find a word, a phrase, or something that you want to say about yourself, that you want to believe about yourself, and then begin to say it. Then begin to put emotion with what you're saying. Then begin to visualize yourself in that state of loving yourself, of healing, and then begin to take some type of corresponding action towards that. See, once again, here's where people will fall short. They'll think a thought, they'll attach no emotion to it, and they'll wonder, well, why don't I feel any different? Or they'll think a thought, and then they'll say it. They'll do a positive affirmation, but once again, no emotion attached to it. And then they wonder, once again, why aren't things changing? Why don't I feel different? But if you can take all of this together, you can think a thought, you can feel an emotion towards it, you can begin to have an affirmation with it, and then you take some type of action. You see, it's that action that begins to become a tipping point, because that is what's actually showing you, your brain, and your entire system that you believe it. You're feeling it, you're seeing it, you're thinking it, you're saying it, and then you're acting on it. And that is starting to rewire your core beliefs. And as your core beliefs begin to get rewired, you'll then start to take the actions that you believe that you're worthy of, which are decisions like getting out of certain relationships that aren't serving you, getting rid of certain behaviors that are no longer serving you. And you begin to feel a forward inertia, a forward drawing and pull towards healing and towards the life that you want. So the first step in healing, the first step in beginning to transform your life, yes, is taking the action to decide that you want to change. And then it is beginning to address all of the reasons why underneath that you don't feel like you're worthy of that change, or that you can't see yourself changing. And as you begin to address that, you'll begin to feel a natural pull towards healing. Now, how long will that take for you? I don't know. Everybody's story is different. But I promise you, if you stay with it and you rewire that core belief, you will begin to see yourself as worthy of healing, worthy of love, worthy of the change that you want. And then your system, your brain, your body, your entire ecosystem of who you are is going to find ways to get you to that place of what you truly desire in your heart and what you truly believe that you're worthy of. I hope this video was helpful for you, and for the next 12 months, I'm going to be sharing content like this. Now, I went from a person who was carrying unhealed trauma for over 4 decades, who was filled with shame and self-hatred, who was an alcoholic and in and out of rehab, went through 2 divorces, really just hated myself, was suicidal, and my entire life was falling apart. And I learned how to heal that. I learned how to heal my relationship with myself. So I'll be sharing this for the next 12 months on various platforms. So please follow, please subscribe, and share it with somebody that you think could benefit from it.